In recent years, educators in Maryland and across the country have realized the value of port cities and the vast variety of jobs created by ports. The Affinity Group was created to connect the dots between educators and the maritime transportation industry.
The Transportation Distribution and Logistics Affinity Group is a conglomerate of all of the higher ed and secondary education groups here in the state. And we're tasked with coming together and meeting on a regular basis to discuss how can we best support the industry and the educational outfits in the state by working together and sharing ideas so that we can continue to further support the academic and career pathways. We've asked that the Baltimore Port Alliance Education Committee to participate with the Affinity Group so that we can understand what the industry needs. And this is a very great voice for the Port of Baltimore to communicate through on educational aspects. So their involvement and their voice is very important as to what we do from an educational perspective. Everybody in this is very important for understanding how freight moves from one point to another. The port is a huge economic indicator and driver of the state, but there's lots of other players that also need to be addressed with this. I met Barbara Murray at a workforce development conference about 2 years ago. And she and I sat down and talked about what opportunities existed within our two regions, Virginia and Maryland, to work together.
Barbara is the creator and director of SMART, headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia.
The SMART Center is the Southeast Maritime and Transportation Center. It's a National Science Foundation ATE center, which is an advanced technological education center. One of 40 centers in the nation, and the only center focused on maritime and transportation technologies. The National Science Foundation AT Center's focus is community college in the middle. So our partners are Anne Arundel Community College because of the work with the ports and logistics and the maritime and Baltimore area.
So a lot of the things that we do in our particular market, SMART can support, identifying the academic and career pathways and professional development and training, and helping this particular part of the maritime industry to have the educational aspects identified to support training.
3 overarching goals are career awareness, letting people know about this in every which way, using the SMART Institute, for example. Career pathways. What we've been able to do is build the pathways, demonstrate the pathways where people didn't know where they were. We now have certificates and a degree in maritime technologies. And the other is industry and education partnerships. It's an unusual business to get into anything in maritime. It's not easily accessible. It's why we have an AT center. Nobody gets to see it. And we've had amazing opportunities 2 to 3 times a day.
Teachers and educators come together and are immersed in the transportation industry. In the Baltimore region, what we tried to do with the SMART Institute was provide as much of an overview of this is how our local environment functions within the maritime industry. We spent some time at the Port of Baltimore with Ports America Chesapeake at the Seagirt terminals and Dundalk terminal. We looked at the public ports and the private ports with Ruckert terminals. We tried to give a perspective of what is a ro-ro ship and what is its function. We actually got to go and tour and drive up into a ro-ro ship. We looked at the engineering and environmental aspects and spent some time at Masonville Cove Environmental Center and the Merck barge. We looked at the seagoing careers and looked at what MARAD does and got to tour one of the MARAD ships. We spent some time at the U.S. Coast Guard, and they were gracious to provide a tour of their boatyard repair facility and their warehouse operations. And the goal is for those teachers and career coaches and guidance counselors and college faculty to go back, take what they've learned and infuse those concepts within their curriculum, whatever it may be. And the goal here is to help those students to become more aware that careers exist in the transportation industry that are viable, they're important, you can make a lot of money. One of the things I tell my students is when you're working in and around a port, or if you're shipping goods via the maritime industry, your company typically doesn't just exist right up against the dock or the wharf. You've got to have the means to transport those goods from the port on. And so that's where our trucking industry comes in, that's where our rail industry comes in, which is very important. Without having those connections, you're not able to move your products to the final destination. And so these are all aspects that students are interested in and need to know throughout the courses, and it helps them to make a decision with their academic pathways to go find a job out there in the industry that exists.